WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 23 minutes before 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Friday morning. Hope you're doing well. This is our opportunity to catch up on the news from around the world, around the nation, around the state, and sometimes from around our neighborhood right here in Ocala. And we deliver the news to you in abbreviated form. We shorten it, get to the point, cut to the chase, to give you an opportunity to catch up on as much news as we can squeeze in 23 minutes. Usually it's between 20 and 25 stories, and it gives us an opportunity to put news back into news talk. We call the segment News Bites, and we will start with a story from this morning. And and in addition to reading you the news, we'll also tell you where we got it from so that you can look up the story and read the details. We will probably not give you many details in any of these stories, which is just the gist of the story. The first one comes from Bloomberg News. A car bomb shook downtown Beirut this morning, killing former finance minister Mohammed Klata and 5 other people, underscoring how the fallout from Syria's civil war is deepening divisions in neighboring Lebanon. 50 others were injured when the bomb, rigged with about 50 kilograms of explosives packed inside a stolen Honda, detonated around 9:45 a.m. their time, according to the state-run National News Agency. Chata, who was 62 years old, was a member of the Western-backed March 14th coalition. He was traveling to meet other people in the group when the attack occurred. The strike was the first to target a member of the March 14th organization since a wave of explosions began shaking Lebanon in July. Most of the assaults have targeted Lebanon's militant Hezbollah group, a member of the rival March 8th alliance, which has supported Syrian President Bashar al-Assad.
President Obama signed the massive defense policy bill into law yesterday while vacationing with his family in Hawaii, but said he is reserving the right to ignore part of the legislation that prevents him from transferring detainees at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, into the United States. It's a standard objection Mr. Obama has raised every year as Congress passes the National Defense Authorization Act, with the president claiming the power to conduct military affairs and to determine where to try cases, and arguing that preventing detainees from being transferred into the United States conflicts with his, in other words, Obama's powers, reported by the Washington Times.
The next story is from the Irish newspaper called The Independent. It's the most recent story I could find about the ship that was stuck in the ice. An icebreaker named the Snow Dragon has drawn close to a ship that has been trapped in Antarctic ice since Christmas Eve, raising hopes that a rescue is imminent. The Russian ship MV Academic Shukowski got stuck in the ice on Tuesday. The ship was not in danger of sinking, and there were ample supplies for the 74 scientists, tourists, and crew on board, but the vessel could not move because of the ice. 3 icebreakers have been trying to reach the ship since authorities received the vessel's distress signal on Wednesday. China's Snow Dragon has made it to the edge of the sea ice surrounding the ship, which is 12 miles away. Wow, the ice is 12 miles wide.
Wow.
But expedition leader Chris Turney says it could still be another day before the Snow Dragon reaches the ship. What an amazing mission this is. Anyway, so that's the latest news I can find if you're interested in that story.
And this is a story you were referring to earlier. It's reported by ABC News. Take two of 2013's biggest internet sensations, Bitcoins and the Shiba Inu puppy nicknamed Dog, and smash them together. What you get is Dogcoin, a virtual currency that was hacked during the holidays. Although 21 million dog coins were lost in the heist, they only amounted to about $12,000 in value. In comparison, Bitcoins are now valued at close to $750 a piece, and a Bitcoin back in November lost 4,100 Bitcoins, totaling $1.2 million. The hacks caught Jackson Palmer, a co-founder of the currency, by surprise. He and the other co-founder of Dogcoin, Billy Marcus, are looking to beef up security in the next month. Even though the idea of dog coins started as a joke, Palmer said it has grown in popularity.
Wow.
Cool.
The next story is from the Associated Press. A South Louisiana man attacked his former in-laws, his current wife, and the head of a hospital where he had worked, killing 3 before killing himself. The shootings happened at 4 locations in 2 parishes in Louisiana, about 45 miles southwest of New Orleans, yesterday. The first report came about 6:40 p.m. last night when La Forge Parish Councilman Louis Philip Go, who was shot in the throat, called 911 from his home in Lockport, Louisiana. The suspect, 38-year-old Ben Freeman, was the ex-husband of Go's daughter, Jean. LaFoe Parish Sheriff's Office spokesman Brennan Mathern said in a news release, Go's wife, Susan Pixie Go, was dead when deputies arrived. Louis Philip Go and his daughter, Andrea Go, were injured and taken to University Hospital in New Orleans. Both were in critical but stable condition. About 20 minutes later in Raceland, Ochsner, which I guess is another parish. By the way, parishes in Louisiana are the same as our counties. St. Anne General Hospital Administrator Milton Bourgeois was shot and killed at close range at his home. His wife, Anne Bourgeois, was shot and taken to the New Orleans hospital where she was listed in stable condition. Raceland police say Bourgeois was shot at close range and his wife was shot in the leg. Freeman had been employed at 3 area hospitals over the last few years, including St. Anne, where La Forge Parish Sheriff Craig Weber said he had been a registered nurse before he was fired in 2011. All 3 hospitals were put on lockdown for a while yesterday. What a terrible story. So anyway, 4 people dead if you didn't follow that story, including the shooter.
Oh. A hedge fund tycoon who gave away his fortune before committing suicide this week was praised yesterday as a legend who had a passion to get things done in the world. Robert Wilson, 87, jumped to his death off the San Remo apartment building, a prestigious New York City address on Central Park West. In the years before his death, he pledged to give away his entire fortune, some $800 million. This is a quote. Robert W. Wilson was a Wall Street legend who became a prominent philanthropist, said Fred Krupp, president of the Environmental Defense Fund. Wilson donated $100 million to the organization and challenged others to donate more. Krupp said that Wilson built up his own portfolio on Wall Street before stepping up his philanthropic work with the aim of bestowing his fortune during his lifetime. Wilson also donated his money to the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of New York, the World Monuments Fund, the Nature Conservancy, the Environmental Defense Fund, and the Wildlife Conservation Society, reported by ABC News.
And this is from CNN News. In a potential preview of the next presidential election, a national poll suggests that Hillary Clinton and Chris Christie would be neck and neck if the 2016 contest were held today. But a CNN ORC international survey released yesterday also indicates Clinton leading 8 other possible Republican White House hopefuls in hypothetical general election matchups. According to the poll, 48% of registered voters say they would support Christie, the Republican governor of New Jersey, if he were the Republican nominee for president, with 46% saying they would back Clinton, the former Secretary of State, U.S. Senator, and First Lady, if she captured the Democrat nomination. Christie's 2-point margin is within the survey's sampling error. The CNN poll is a third nonpartisan live operator national survey conducted this month to indicate a possible matchup between Clinton and Christie, basically all tied up. And then again from CNN.
Vital territory won by British forces in Afghanistan risks being lost to the Taliban as Britain completes its military withdrawal by the end of next year, the head of the army has warned. Key Afghan towns such as Ocala, where British troops suffered heavy casualties during the early phase of military operations in Helmand province, could be retaken by the Taliban as insurgents seek to regain lost territory, General Sir Peter Wall said. So far, 447 British soldiers have died. Hundreds more have suffered serious injury during fighting in Afghanistan. The latest British soldier to die there was serving with the Royal Engineers when he was killed during an operation to the east of Kabul earlier this week, reported by The Telegraph.
And this story from the Associated Press, a python strangled a security guard near a luxury hotel on Indonesia's resort island of Bali this morning, and then escaped into nearby bushes following the deadly attack, according to police and a hotel employee who witnessed the incident. The incident happened around 3 a.m. this morning, their time, as the 15-foot-long python was slithering across a road near the Bali Hyatt Hotel. According to an assistant security manager at the hotel, identified as Agung Bawa, the hotel is closed for renovations until 2015. The victim, a 59-year-old security guard at a nearby restaurant, is named Ambar Arianto Mulyo. He had offered to help capture the snake, which had apparently been spotted several times before near the hotel, located in Bali's Sanur area. Mulyo managed to secure the snake's head and tail and put it on his shoulders, but the python wrapped itself around his body and strangled him. People watching the incident were unable or unwilling to help and called the police, who came but failed to save the man. The python escaped into the nearby bushes, and police were still searching for the snake. Denpasar Police Captain Gusti Gura Yudhistiri, oh man, I say these names so badly, said Mulyo died of suffocation. It happened so fast, they say. We were sad because we could not do anything to help him. Anyway, killed by a python. What a way to go.
Well before Amazon.com introduced the idea of commercial drone deliveries to the public imagination, U.S. regulators were telling people flying these unmanned devices to ground their gadgets and to file for a permit. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration has issued a dozen orders to halt the operation of what are technically called unmanned aircraft systems for commercial pursuits, including those performed by aerial photographers, videographers, and journalism schools. While no one disputes the FAA's role in regulating the U.S. national airspace, some legal experts question whether the agency has authority over the use of private commercial drones that operate below 400 feet and away from airports, reported by Bloomberg.
And from the Associated Press, a white Houston area man was arrested yesterday on federal hate crimes charges for allegedly shooting video of himself sucker punching a 79-year-old black man in a knockout game. Conrad Alvin Barrett, who is 27 years old, made a brief appearance before U.S. Magistrate Judge Francis Stacy, who scheduled a detention hearing for the Katy man on Friday. According to prosecutors, the attack happened on November 24th in the city of Katy, but it wasn't until 12 days later that authorities connected the attack to the cell phone video of the attack. Authorities learned of the case because Barrett allegedly showed the video on the night of the attack to an off-duty arson investigator he had just met at a restaurant in nearby Folshire. According to the criminal complaint, Barrett asked the off-duty investigator and the woman with the investigator if they knew about the knockout game. He told them he played it earlier that day and then showed them the video of himself hitting the 79-year-old man. The investigator then flagged down a uniformed officer across the street and led him to Barrett. The attack video does not show Barrett's face, but investigators matched his voice to the voice in the video, and the couple in the restaurant told investigators that Barrett was wearing the same shorts and shoes as the person who shot the video. According to prosecutors, the video shows Barrett approach the victim and ask, "How's it going, man?" A loud smack is then heard. The victim falls to the ground. Barrett is heard laughing and saying, "Knockout." The assailant then flees in his vehicle. The victim lost 3 teeth and needed surgery to repair his jaw, which had been broken in 2 places. He was hospitalized for more than 4 days, according to the report. This is called a game.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah, people are getting hurt. They're almost
Crazy.
dying. Stocks rose yesterday with the Dow closing higher for a 6th consecutive session as Wall Street continued its record-setting advance after data showed fewer Americans than expected filing applications for jobless benefits last week, casting a positive light on the labor market. Here is a quote from Jim Russell, senior equity strategist for U.S. Bank Wealth Management. The fundamentalists are perking up right when we need them to as the Fed steps away. He was referring to the Federal Reserve's recent announcement that it would start reducing its $85 billion in monthly bond purchases by $10 billion, reported by MSNBC.
And the next story is from Bloomberg. Patent owners who lose infringement lawsuits should have to pay the winners legal fees more often, a U.S. appeals court said in adding its views to a debate before Congress and the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit in Washington ordered a judge to analyze if memory cell maker Kylopass Technology should pay legal fees incurred by closely held competitor Cydence Corporation. It said the court must consider whether Kylopass acted in bad faith in light of the totality of the circumstances, even if there's no specific evidence of wrongdoing. And that is an opinion written by Circuit Judge Kathleen O'Malley. The story again is from Bloomberg.
Environmental priorities have trumped the medical concerns of a small Alaskan community. After 4 years of study, the Obama administration has decided that the isolated community of King Cove, Alaska, may not build a 22-mile single-lane gravel road through the Izembek National Wildlife Refuge to the town of Cold Bay. This decision was announced on December 23rd by Interior Secretary Sally Jewell. This decision by the Obama administration has infuriated the people of King Cove, where the proposed road has been discussed since the 1980s. The road would have given them access to emergency medical and other services by way of the all-weather airport at Cold Bay, reported by CNS News.
And the next story is from CNN. A Japanese governor has approved a measure to allow for the relocation of a controversial U.S. military base on Okinawa, breaking 17 years of stagnation on the base's transfer plan, according to a statement issued by the government of Okinawa this morning. The Okinawa Prefecture's governor, Hirokazu Nakaima, this morning approved a landfill proposal by the Japanese central government that will permit the construction of new military facilities in a sparsely populated area. The Futenma Air Base, which is in a highly populated area, has been unpopular with the island's residents due to crimes committed by U.S. military personnel and allegations against them in the past. Many residents were incensed by the rape of a 12-year-old Japanese girl in 1995 by 3 U.S. military personnel. It sparked some of the worst anti-U.S. military demonstrations seen in Japan in decades. In 2002, a U.S. staff sergeant in the Air Force was convicted of raping a Japanese woman in a parking lot outside a popular nightclub in Okinawa. Intense media coverage of the case brought pressure on the Japanese government to review its agreement with the United States about handling criminal cases in Japan involving the U.S. military, and allegations that a Marine raped a 14-year-old girl caused a furor in 2008. The girl later decided not to pursue charges, and in 2012, 3 U.S. servicemen were arrested in connection with rapes in Okinawa. About half of all U.S. military personnel in Japan are stationed on the island. The stagnation of the relocation issue has been a thorn in the side of relations between Tokyo and Washington since 1996, when the two governments agreed on the original plan to move the base.
An international team of researchers has found more than 40 new areas in DNA that increase the risk of rheumatoid arthritis. The work is the largest genetic study ever carried out, involving nearly 30,000 patients. The investigators believe new drugs could be developed to target those areas that could one day provide a cure for the disease. The findings are published in the journal Nature. What this offers in the future is an opportunity to use genetics to discover new medicines for complex diseases like rheumatoid arthritis and to treat or even cure the disease. The research team compared the DNA of arthritis patients with those without the disease. They found 42 faulty areas that were linked with the disease. The hope is that drugs can be developed to compensate for these faults, reported by the BBC.
And this is from MSNBC. In Silicon Valley, the executives and engineers who have helped build the Apple, Google, and Facebook empires earn high salaries and enjoy a slew of perks, including stellar health benefits. The clients of the Ravenswood Family Health Center, a community clinic in East Palo Alto, just 2 miles away from Facebook's sprawling headquarters, live in a very different Silicon Valley. They are the gardeners, nannies, factory workers, and service staff who keep Silicon Valley homes and offices humming, the lawns manicured, and the families comfortable. They are also, in many ways, a microcosm of the population of the Affordable Care Act that was meant to help. Many earn between $5 and $15 an hour and don't own or use computers and are more comfortable speaking Spanish than English, and many of those Spanish-speaking residents are expected to be left behind in the first wave of Obamacare, that according to MSNBC.
Most Americans believe that government corruption has gotten worse under the Obama administration, according to a new national survey conducted by two conservative organizations. The survey, conducted by the Conservative Judicial Watch in partnership with Breitbart.com, shows 77% of the 1,000 adults questioned are concerned about government corruption, and 52% of them think the problem has gotten worse over the past 5 years since President Barack Obama first took office. This is reported by The Telegraph.
And this one is from ABC News. 5 teenagers were arrested when a 600-person brawl broke out at a Jacksonville movie theater, Jacksonville, Florida, that would be, in the parking lot on Christmas night. Described by police as a melee, the fight occurred around 8:30 p.m. Christmas night outside of the Hollywood River City 14 movie theater in Jacksonville when a group tried to storm the theater's doors without purchasing tickets. Several had rushed on an off-duty police officer working as a security guard. The officer administered pepper spray to disperse the group, locked the doors, and called for backup following protocol, according to Lori Ellen Smith, a spokeswoman for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Soon after the pepper spray was used, upward of 600 people moving throughout a parking lot about the size of a football field began fighting, disrupting, and jumping on cars. 62 police officers were called to the scene to break up the brawl, sequestering them and separating them, according to Smith. Only minor injuries and damage to property were reported. No gunshots were fired either, according to the report. All 5 of the people arrested on the scene were charged with crimes related to fighting. 3 of those arrested, including 1 minor, were charged with felonies. 2 other juveniles who have not been named by police were charged with misdemeanors.
The indiscriminate use of antibiotics by the agriculture and aquaculture industries poses a threat to public health, but a Canadian expert suggests a user fee. Aidan Hollis, an economics professor at the University of Calgary and co-author Ziana Ahmed, said in the United States, 80% of the antibiotics in the country are consumed in agriculture and aquaculture for the purpose of increasing food production. This flood of antibiotics released into the environment, sprayed on fruit trees, and fed to livestock, poultry, and salmon, among other uses, has led bacteria to evolve. This is reported by UPI.
And from Fox News, when budget woes reduced the sheriff's department in one rural Oregon county to a bare-bones force, residents decided to take matters into their own hands, creating armed patrol groups in defiance of local officials. Their decision has raised safety concerns with the county government, which would prefer residents instead hike their own taxes to fund the hiring of trained deputies. But despite the risks, the move stands as a unique one, some would say innovative one, response to one of the country's most severe local budget crunches. The government in Josephine County, where nearly 70% of the land is owned by the U.S. government, had long relied on federal timber subsidies to pay the bills. When the feds terminated the funds, county officials scrambled to pass a May 2012 tax levy to make up a nearly $7.5 million budget shortfall. In other words, the citizens taking the law into their own hands when the government couldn't pay for the sheriff's office employees.
A rising population, a low tax regime, and insulation from the worst of the Eurozone's problems leave Britain on course to overtake Germany as Europe's biggest economy within the next 2 decades, according to a study released yesterday. The annual World Economic League tables from the Center for Economic and Business Research predicts that Germany, for decades Europe's powerhouse economy, will have a smaller economy than the UK by about 2030. Although strong growth by emerging economies such as India, Brazil, and Russia mean that the UK will slip down the global rankings over the next 2 decades. This is reported by The Guardian.
That's all the time we have for News Bites. Remember, we do this segment each weekday morning. It's your opportunity to catch up on the news from around the world in a very short form. And remember, you can always look up the stories in detail by going to the resources that we mentioned in the course of reading them. And Robin, how many stories did we get in there today?
23.
23, not bad. Yep. That's about average. All right, we've got to move forward, and Jim George is up next. He's going to talk about your cable, your fiber optics, and we're going to ask him a little bit about that news out of Denellen with their fiber optic company. We'll take a little break and be right back.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.